Yeah, like it's crazy. We try to control everything with information, but then there's always.
We think we can.
Welcome, Andrew. I'm so happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us. We've obviously had a relationship for the last few years and got to know each other, and I feel I found a bit of a kindred spirit in the vision of the work we're doing and also the work that you had already been doing. Tell me a little bit about your story, your background. I know that you've had many ventures, and you, from my understanding, have walked a path that has led to a deep wisdom in what it means to actually commercialize a product and cause an impact on people.
I'm going to give you the short story for the career because that's a bit boring, but then I'll focus in on, say, the bank that I did because I think that's where I learned so much in my corporate life. So I started out as a software engineer in the early 80s with a super mini computer company. Loved it, learned a whole lot about computer architectures and software. I then did Cisco, doing similar things in terms of network equipment design. Lived in the Valley, understood that when you're working long hours, months, years at a time, you burn out. This is not a life to be led. One of the biggest lessons I learned from there was to actually live a quality life and have good work home life balance. Then following that, I started with two people that I had already been working with at Cisco and beforehand, and that was to build a bank.
Okay.
I was like, why build a bank?
Yeah, why build a bank?
Well, we had been looking around at the technology that was being utilized by banks to provide card facilities for merchants to accept payments from their customers. And it was all antiquated. It was horrible. It was like old 8-bit microprocessor sliced, devices, hard to program, incredibly brittle, prone to failure, and expensive. And we thought, this is a problem that we can solve with the things that I've been talking to you about before, the internet, Linux, Java, Intel, Iron, blah, blah, blah. And that led then to having conversations with the regulators because new bank licenses are just being issued. There was one to acquire cards and one to issue cards. And we went, okay, if we take a bank license to acquire cards, we can actually build this technology that I've been talking about and make it real and provide that to merchants around small merchants around Australia.
This doesn't sound like an easy problem to solve.
Well, we thought it was a technology problem to begin with, and yes, the technology was difficult, but it was also a regulatory and financial problem that we had to solve as well. So Tyro was the big thing where I learned a ton, not just about software engineering because I did that for 5 years, but also about selling door to door, and then in order to scale the company, about building channel partnerships. Because if I can get the channels to help sell for me, then I can scale much more quickly. Of course, all those things relied on the personal relationships that we talked about before.
Correct.
I've also done a bunch of startups before and in the meantime. I've been involved in data exchange, so Data Republic, which was a fascinating thing, but I don't think I was the right person at the right time, had too much going on in my life. I was involved in a digital healthcare startup, which had really actually great promise, but failed for a couple of reasons. And that kind of led me to now really where you approached me and talked about Tapestry and your desire to create essentially like a data exchange company. But far more directed than say Data Republic's version of that was. And I thought, oh man, this is going to be great. Like if we can execute properly on this could actually be like world beating. And that's what I really liked about the startups that I do. Their ideas have broad scale applicability, not just in Australia, but across the world. Like they're big problems to solve. And that's what I like. I don't want to be involved in a little startup just to solve a niche problem. I want something big that's realizable. And of course, along with that is the personal relationships. If they're there, that makes it much easier to solve these big problems that we're going for.
Talk to me about the work we're now doing and how you see our direct data marketplace affecting people and businesses.
Oh man, I think from, let's say, the business owner's perspective, like a retailer, for example, like an IGA, pick anyone that you like. How can I more effectively run my business with less effort that generates greater profitability and lets me go home and sleep better at night time?
Yeah.
How can I do that? Gee, I'm selling all these products on my shelves, but I don't really have the intelligence at the moment to figure out what products should be stocking on my shelf, where should I be stocking them, how much should I be selling them for? I just don't have any of that information at hand right now to make that work for me. We bring tapestry into the mix. Now, as a shop, I can see all these suppliers, all these different products. I know now where to stock my, fast sellers in easy reach of my customers.
Yeah.
What are my customers like? What products do they have? What do they normally buy? Not just at my shop, but somewhere else. So how can I better stock the right products for my customers in my store so my customers keep coming back to me? So then I create probably better uplift for my customers because they keep coming back because I got the products they want.
Yeah.
I position them right and I price them right. Happy days.
Yeah.
So I like that. So now my small businesses are better able to compete in the like retail landscape.
Yeah.
As the starting sector. Because we're not just talking about retail with your products. Well, I should say ours because I'm involved now, right? How can we better enable small businesses around the country to more effectively compete? And I think that's really an amazing proposition that we can put to merchants around the country.
Yeah. How do you feel about this idea of directly sharing your data with brands as a small business?
So I think that customers, shop owners, they should be able to exchange information that they want to according to their terms.
Yeah.
So that means that there's going to be some contract that exists between the shop owner and the supplier of those brands that says, I am willing to give you just this amount of information that you need to help you make a decision about supplying me with the stuff that I want.
Yeah.
And by the way, this goes vice versa.
That's right.
Right? You want to be able to provide a contract that says, on one side, I'm willing to give you just enough information for you to be able to make a decision about supplying me with the stuff that I need, right? That's critically important. This is now the conversation about the inversion of control of who owns the data and who's giving the data.
That's right.
That is the thing that we need to be focusing on.
Yeah.
And that's where we need this notion of a digital identity that then controls the amount of information that who owns this particular digital identity, gives away.
Yeah.
We all have, let's come back to a consumer instead of a business because it's easy to explain. In your life, you have a banking relationship, you have an insurance relationship, you have a car relationship, you have a retail, you have all these different relationships. And in each slice of your life, you have different types of information of different value. And so when you go to get a product or a service, you should be able to say, presumably via a smart contract of some description, right? Because we're doing all this electronically now.
Yeah, well, we call it the data trade agreement, but
Right, So you say, I, through this contract, allow you to take this information of mine for you to make a decision about the kind of product and service that I want that you're going to give to me. And so this is the inversion control, which is really important because now you, as a consumer or a business owner, own your information and you give it away according to your rules.
Yeah.
You don't give your information away and then have it used in some way that you never envisaged happening, right? And so that needs support regulatory-wise, government-wise.
Yeah.
And so that's a conversation that we are going to be having as the months and the years go by in terms of how can we make what we've just been talking about real, governable, regulated, so that you, as a consumer or as a small business owner, have all the rights to decide what information I'm giving away.
You mentioned two very interesting words when talking about, say, a retailer or a shopper, and it was they and their, right? Which are words that indicate ownership, right? These ideas of data ownership and taking control of your information. And obviously there's access to these tools This is very close to my heart, right? And we've had many conversations about this. Why is data ownership important at this point in history?
Because it's been proven that corporations generally don't act in your favor when you give information away, and you're not giving information away in a controlled way. It goes uncontrolled. How many times do you sign up for a service that has T's and C's that are like 50 pages long? Are you going to read those T's and C's? Hell no. You're just going to say, yes, I agree because I want the service. And then who knows what happens to the information that you give away? Well, actually, I do care, but I want to be able to give that away in a way that is easily digestible in terms of understanding what you would do with this. Well, I don't even want to have to agree to what you're saying. I'm going to tell you what I can give away, and here are the rules, right? That you will be governed by.
Yep.
That's really important.
This is very important.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%. It's important, this idea of data governance, specifically this point in history. I feel there's a conversation that's been brewing for the last 20 years. Maybe even longer, this great myth that's emerging, which is what is our relationship to technology and the tools that we use, but more so than with those tools, what is our relationship with each other? And so this seems to have accelerated even in the last 12 months since we've started talking. Why is data governance, data ownership, the ability to monetize your own data becoming important, and why will it continue to become more important?
Well, let's put the monetization piece aside for 1 second. I believe that we are generating so much data now on the planet that it's almost impossible to control the use of that data. Like 20 years ago, there wasn't so much data flying around the internet. Now there is. Tesla takes in, was it 4 or 8 terabytes of information a second from every vehicle on the planet. Do you know what they do with that data? What data are they capturing? I have absolutely zero idea. That's just Tesla, right? I'm not saying they're a bad actor or anything, but times Tesla by, the top 8 big tech companies, Microsoft, Google, Apple, Facebook, etc. They're collecting huge amounts of data. We have no idea what they're doing with that data until a case comes up. Like Facebook and the company in England, Cambridge Analytica. It's like, oh man. So now, more than ever, it's really important to be able to control your data because there's so much of it being shipped around.
Do you think it's inevitable? Like we see things like the GDPR, and in Australia we have a
consumer data right.
Do you think there is a wave with obviously the rapid adoption of artificial intelligence driving us in a direction from our policy perspective?
There has to be because artificial intelligence weaves together now. It captures so much information. Basically I sweep the whole internet all the time. And it seems like I as an individual can probably access the whole internet's worth of data to do what I want to do. And how do I know that the information is not copyrighted, not patented, freely available? I have no idea. And I think it's really important, and there's regulatory legal work going on right now to actually try and understand what rules and principles need to be applied to ensure that the information that's being sucked up by the LLMs actually adheres to laws surrounding these things, patents, copyrights and whatnot, especially copyrighted information.
Our model is a direct data model, so we actually legally own no data.
Right.
Which means you can, as a retailer, transfer your data to a brand. We don't allow any personal information to flow through the system without the permission of the individual. Obviously, we've entered the market in relationship to retailers and brands, and we'll in the future extend that to shoppers and the local community. Why is a direct model exciting and powerful?
That's an interesting question. Let me back up a little bit and say that tapestry really, to me, seems like the ASX of data. Why do I say that? Because the ASX is essentially an exchange of assets, of equities. That allows individuals to trade, and it allows brokers to trade, so individuals can go through them. But the ASX is essentially just a trading platform. It doesn't decide prices or anything like that. And so Tapestry to me is like the ASX, except it's the ASX of data. It has nothing to do with data ownership. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the buyer and the seller that agree the terms of the exchange of the data. And I think that instead of coming to your point now, instead of being a broad exchange of data, you sort of narrow your world down. I think we can understand better how the exchange of data will flow between a shop and a brand, and as you say, ultimately a consumer and the shop. Because you've narrowed yourself down, the problems are more tractable, they're easier to solve. And once you solve those problems, you can then go to like adjacent like sectors and say, well, I've learned all these lessons from having a narrow focus on the exchange of data in here, and I think I've got a lot of lessons that are applicable here with a few changes.
Yep.
And so you go, this one, which is our first kind of like sector, then this one, then this one, then this. And suddenly now I'm across a whole pile of sectors, but I've learned a ton. You know, we're building this thing brick by brick, shall we say.
From the ground up.
From the ground up, you know. The more I understand about this sector, in terms of data exchange and the rules that govern that exchange, the better I am at understanding this sector than this sector and so forth. So those lessons get burned in. I don't forget them easily at all.
Yeah.
Which is really important. And so by the time I've covered the whole market in X years' time, I have this broad and deep set of experiences that have informed how data can be exchanged efficiently and safely.
I like the idea, and obviously some of our customers are supermarkets. Supermarket is a supermarket.
Yeah.
There's a market within a market with a market with products.
Yeah.
So when we look at our model, it's how does this individual relate to this product line or brand inside this context?
Yeah.
And exactly what you said, it's the same knowledge or wisdom that comes over time. I'm not saying we're wise, we're getting there. Well, you probably are. But over time it compounds, this compounding knowledge. And I see the impact of a better way of exchanging data not being about just the exchange of information. It's the impact of the way that we relate to one another.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about your small business and their customers. If I use Tapestry correctly, I can actually provide, as we said before, I can provide the right products that they want at a price point that they want, where in the store they want. That customer is going to be like pretty happy. You know, it's like, oh man, thank you. And so again, that creates like the stickiness because the consumer is really happy. They've got what they want.
It's a better experience.
It's a better experience. And you know what happens is like this person now has a stronger, probably personal relationship with the store.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a personal relationship always that define the longevity of the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, where do I spend my money these days? I spend them in my local community. I try not to go to like big supermarkets and things like that. You know, I buy, if I can find a t-shirt, for example, I'll go to my surf shop. If I need a bottle of wine, I go to my local bottle shop.
Yeah.
You know, because I know those people. And sometimes the bottle actually might be more expensive.
Yeah.
But because I know Nigel in this bottle shop, because we've been knowing each other for 30 years, and because he's a local operator, I'm going to support his business.
Yeah.
Because he's actually put product in there that I like.
Yeah.
I like him, and I like what he does.
It's almost like this idea of a personalized experience in your local community.
Isn't that what we want?
Yeah.
Isn't that what all of us want? You know, I want to have a primary relationship with the person that either owns or runs the business.
Yeah. And it's not about data, it's about that.
It's not about the data. The data actually promotes the experience.
That's right.
Which is why technology should get the hell out of the way of my life and allow me to have a personal experience with you.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
You know?
Is that why you're here?
Of course.
Yeah.
There's no other reason than that. Is our personal relationship underpins everything that we do.
Yeah. And I want to see an extension of that personal relationship through our technology.
Yeah. I agree.